Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is the radio program that is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by our good friends at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. The bacon, we can't go a whole show without just going off on the bacon because it's so unbelievably
The bacon is like
good.
this thick and covered in blue cheese and truffle oil.
And I have to tell you, the first time that they served it to, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know how I'm going to like this because this is not how I usually want my bacon. I usually want my bacon thin and crispy, like I want my pizza crust. Right. I was mistaken. It was the most amazing, one of the most amazing things I've ever eaten. So it's and so now we get it every single time we go to B&B, which is a lot. So there's a very interesting little tasting. Ian, by the way, is holding the tequila we're going to be trying in this segment on the Twirligig. Did I get it right? I always get the name of it.
Twirligig.
Mr. Twirligig, yeah. And it is it's looking very pretty. It's a very tall bottle, so
it is. Here's the rest of it. At the bottom of it.
So that's good. So we'll be trying that in a moment. But a quick article about whiskey. Jim Beam Black. It's one of the bar staples you see almost anywhere. Pretty good sipper for the price point, and one that goes extremely well in cocktails.
For those that don't know, this is the one notch up from your regular white label Jim Beam.
It's like if you want to go just a little bit better. In a blind taste test, it is said an independent third-party alcohol beverage tasting industry known as BTI, the Beverage Tasting Institute, which, by the way, can't believe somebody thought to found that before we did. The BTI.
Yeah.
The Beverage Tasting Institute. Damn it. We should have been quicker with that. Anyway, they tested people over the age of 21 with two samples, the Jim Beam Black and an iconic unnamed bourbon that can cost up to $3,000 a bottle. You might be able to guess what that is, even if there's no official confirmation as such. And if you were thinking about the Pappy Van Winkle, I'm just saying, it could be. It could be. I don't know that it is, but it could be. Anyway, so it's a relatively strong percentage, 54%, that preferred the Beam Black over this other unnamed whiskey in the study. It's noted that at least 55% of the study said that the Jim Beam Black tasted smoother. So Whiskey Wash is if you, by the way, are just, goofing around on the internet looking for interesting stuff to read and you're into whiskey, Whiskey Wash is a great site. They have awesome stuff writing about all kinds of different whiskeys, and they're very, I think, unbiased and no fake whiskey news there. So they inquired into the methodology behind the study, because it's a pretty bold claim, if you think about it. A whiskey that's going to be less than $25 a bottle,
right?
54% of a sample preferring it to the more expensive. So this is what they found out about the methodology. A BTI tested people in markets across the country that as a whole represented the average American whiskey drinking demographic. They were 21 and over and pre-identified as American whiskey drinkers. So one of the things I learned from being in the radio business, by the way, is that if you're trying to prove a thing to be true,
you can
almost certainly do it with research if you orient the research a particular way. Now, that said, BTI is an independent organization, and they would have, one would assume, no horse in the race to try to prove that Jim Beam Black is preferable to a $3,000 whiskey. Excuse me. So, after tasting the two samples, participants were asked to answer a series of questions about their preference related to taste and smoothness. So, that's really all that we've been told about the...
Before you go any further, can I point something out?
Sure.
If you just go by sales, people prefer McDonald's over Five Guys.
Well, that's a really good point.
I just want to point that out.
And I'll tell you another little thing about research. In the early to mid, well, it was actually in the late 90s. I was working at a classic rock and roll station in Philadelphia, And all radio stations do music research, or at least if they can afford to, they do. And in a market like Philadelphia, it's pretty important, and you do it. So when you do music research, you have people come in who are supposed to be screened to be a representative sample of either your audience or the audience that you want. They come in, you usually get a ballroom in a hotel somewhere, and they're paid, $50, $75 for the evening to sit for an hour and a half or so, and they'll be played little snippets of songs, in this case, classic rock and roll songs. And they have one of those little things that looks like an SAT score sheet, and they'll say, when the snippet of the song plays, they say, oh, I like that a little, I like it a lot, I'm tired of it, whatever. And then all those results are taken and tallied, and a list is put together so you know what the most popular classic rock and roll songs are. In the case of a station like this, you would want to play the most popular songs the most often, and the ones that are a little less popular, you'd want to play them maybe a little less. I've never been in a study in my entire career in radio where two songs, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin and Freebird by Leonard Skinner, did not test in the top 5. What happened in the late 90s is this new rating system came out that used a meter. And instead of people writing down what they listened to, they wore the meter on their belt like a pager during the day, and it would pick up what they were listening to, and it would record their listening habits. When that came out, they released a study that referenced my station specifically, and this study said that every time we played Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin or Freebird by Leonard Skinner, half of the audience tuned out. Half.
They went
50% tuned out and went somewhere else. And you think, well, how can this be? The research says those are 2 of the 5 most popular songs every time we test them. And what I said to people was, in research, people have a tendency to vote for things.
Yeah.
If you're a rock and roll fan, Stairway to Heaven comes on, you're like, well, I
How
can't,
do you say no to that?
I can't give that less than the top score.
Yeah.
It's freaking Stairway to Heaven, right? And so sometimes just because you would vote that something is the best doesn't necessarily mean that you want to listen to it on your way home today or all the time, right? So I'm guessing that some of this same methodology stuff creeps into this researching when it comes to things like this too. Let's also remember that unless you assume there was a conspiracy theory, everybody in all the taste tests liked New Coke better than they liked the old formula. And they changed the formula, and it was a disaster. People stopped by it. They had to reintroduce the old formula. So it's just, research is not always indicative. That said, I was thinking, we'll just recreate this. So, Ian, for the next show, I will buy a bottle of Jim Beam Black if you will buy a bottle of the $3,000.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, and we'll have Adam pour them separately, and we'll taste them next to each other, and we'll see what
How about this, though? Okay, so I'm not going to buy the $3,000 bottle.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a bad idea. If you buy a bottle of the Jim Beam Black, I will bring some of the upper-end whiskeys that I have.
So maybe something you've got that's, from the upper end of your collection. That's not a bad idea.
I got a little bit of a Little Book left. I've got a few things in there, and we can see what we prefer.
What we could do? We could have several different samples, like maybe 3-4 different blind samples.
Yeah.
And one of them would be the Jim
Now
Beam
you're just
Black.
trying to work over my whiskey collection.
You see right through me, my friend. You see right through me. Okay, speaking of collections, I have a nice collection of tequilas in my bar at home, and I have brought one of them with me today, and it is something we are going to sample in this segment, and I am very curious, Ian, to see how you respond to this particular tequila. It is an organic tequila. We talked about this at the top of the show. I don't really know. Go ahead. Oh, that was...
It was such a...
Subtle.
There we go.
Yeah. We talked about this. I'm not sure exactly what tequilas are not organic, but okay, I'll ride with you on this claim.
It does say certified organic.
Certified, yeah. Well, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe most tequilas are organic, but they aren't all certified, perhaps. I could see that. That would make some sense to me. I like it. So we'll be saying this is an añejo. It is, I want to say, about I think it's high 40s, like a $48, $49 bottle, and it's a really pretty bottle.
Did you get this on Mr. Twirly Gig earlier, by the way?
Yeah, we did, right? You got it. Yeah, okay. All right, very good. So I'll be very curious. And you're sampling tequila with us, right?
Yeah, sure. Where's mine?
Where'd your
Where's
tequila
mine?
go?
Did I not give you one?
Ian, I think you came up short there.
I sure will.
I think. All right.
Thought I handed you two. Sorry. No tequila for you.
Adam, there's yours. I set it up there.
That's what happened.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So on the nose, kind of some brightness for a tequila. Definitely agave. Ian, thoughts? Have you already tasted?
I have.
One of the things I love about you in research,
I'm
you don't
not
mess
shy about
around.
research,
You
no.
just jump right in. I love that about you.
Oh, we have we have a link for organic tequila here that Wiki Brian put up.
Of course, he's good like that. So you've managed to taste this already? Talk to me.
This is it's agave right up front.
Yes, it is.
There's the vanilla. The middle of this is a little bit on the light side. It's not in a bad way, but it's a little on the light side. And then it finishes with that big peppery
the sort of peppery
finish. Yeah.
But you also, one of the things I like about this tequila is the finish is very long. It finishes
very
with
long.
that pepperiness, and then if you just wait, here comes that like vanilla and sort of oakiness to it that some tequilas will have much earlier in the finish.
It has a dryness in the finish that I actually kind of like too, like a very dry.
And yet at the same
wine or
time,
something.
it's pretty darn smooth. So when I first tried this, and I will admit, yes, the bottle was open when I brought it in. When I first tried this, it reminded me of the Skelly Anejo because of its smoothness. So what I did, and if I'd had more Skelly, I'd have brought both of them today so we could do this, but I was running a little low. But I did try it and then tried the Skelly again right after it, which Skelly is a go-to for me. And the Skelly is this is almost as smooth as the Skelly, but it is more buttery. And this one doesn't really have that buttery
Right. No, I wouldn't call this
characteristic to it.
buttery.
It's more. It's got a little more of the pepper. and
Are
stuff.
you a fan of tequila?
You know, I'm a very novice tequila drinker.
How do you feel about this?
And I could drink this. Yeah, it's good. It's nice. I get the oakiness. I get the vanilla.
Right.
Yes, and just for those of us who are listening and not watching, we're not pouring this into margaritas. We're actually just trying it neat.
Yeah. No lime and salt have been heard in this.
No limes or salt have been harmed.
Yeah. I will tell you, I like this tequila a lot. It's not gonna beat out the Reserva de la Familia for me as my favorite, but boy, I think it's really good.
It's
at its price point. I like it a lot.
The sweetness in this is interesting too, because you get that agave up front, and then there's a little bit of vanilla and sweetness that comes right back in there,
Yes.
and then finishes with that big peppery boom.
Mm-hmm.
And then that heat comes back, and like you said, that vanilla really comes back.
Comes
as the
rolling
aftertaste,
back
and
in
oak,
on that finish.
It
Yep.
really leaves that oak dryness in your mouth.
Yeah.
So in case you're wondering what oak tastes like in tequila, buy this tequila.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because you don't think of oak as a tequila
Right.
flavor, and most tequila is not matured in wooden barrels. A lot of it's matured in metal. So it's really interesting to see it take on, unless they've done that specifically to arrive at a particular kind of flavor, which some tequilas will do. But unlike, say, whiskey, most tequila is not aged as long. Either.
Right, and Anejo is 3 years,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
so,
and
I mean,
that's the
the
third
top end, right.
third tier up. Yeah, I think only extra añejo is considered, or añejo extra is considered more than that, and I think that's 5. So,
Right.
so it's interesting whenever you get that much. It's one of the reasons that I really almost started as tequila being my go-to spirit. Once I learned that there were really tequilas designed for
good
not
ones,
just throwing
right.
back at, but and is because relatively inexpensively, and rum can be the same way. You can get some tequila that is considered on the scale of aged tequilas to be pretty aged.
Tequilas that aren't made for slaughtering limes and salt.
I don't buy a lot of blancos and reposados, and some of them are very good, and I probably should do that more. But I have a tendency to go straight to the añejos because they're relatively
for
affordable.
anyone listening. A blanco is what's known as the silver or a white tequila. It's clear in color, generally speaking, and it's less than a year.
The least
how many
aged,
months? It's like 8 months.
I think that's right. Yes,
less than 8 months aged. And a reposado is from that point blanco. Then it's aged up to, I think,
3. Yeah,
is it up to 3? Yeah, it's not as long as you'd think generally, but that's the reposado, and that's a little aged, and then obviously the añejo is 3 years, and then
generally speaking, with tequilas, the younger the tequila is, the more the prominent flavor is going to be the agave. Yeah. And as it ages, it picks up more of the nuanced things, and
that's where you get the vanilla
and the
oak and all those other things.
And because I really love those flavors, and because they also pair really, really well with cigars, that has a tendency to be where I go.
Yeah, and tequilas tend to work around cigar flavors. Right,
they don't push each other.
Right, even so they kind of complement each other versus just go along with each other. Like a cigar, the flavor of a cigar, for whatever reason, doesn't interfere too much with tequila and vice versa, whereas some things that you have together either complement each other or change the flavors of each other. These two things generally work around.
Another thing I think is really interesting about this tequila is, and this sounds like a no-brainer, but this gets better the more you drink it.
Yeah.
It's like and I don't mean that because you're getting loopy. I mean, like the 5th or 6th sip of this, the flavor is more pronounced than the first one.
You
or
start
two.
picking up different nuances in it as well. And, there's a truth. Some things you drink, like the first couple sips of it, are like, oh, that's really nice. But then after you drink more and more of it, sometimes those flavors can be a little too rich and wear on you,
and it doesn't have the same sort of
palate.
Yes, absolutely. And tequila is almost the opposite, or this tequila at least is almost the opposite. This really makes me want a cigar, I will say. Bring anything with you?
I have no cigars. Oh, I have one in the car.
Ah, see?
Yeah. To go with my 2 beers that you brought me.
Yes. It's interesting. I was so surprised that in your beer shipment order that you had Bud Light and a Coors Light. I would never have have expected those to be the ones that you ordered. So
I get a shipment of beer once every month or so, and I send it to Cruz's place because he has a concierge that can sign for it, and I'm not always home. So what I'm surprised by, though, is that I usually think that there's going to be 10 to 12 beers or more in this box, and there's almost always only 2. And I don't know why last time was like a Chilada and a Bud Light Lime.
That's right. And
I don't remember ordering those.
Well, this time it looks like you ordered a Coors Light because the mountains are blue, and the other one looks like, what is this? That's it's a Corona.
Is Bakfish gonna come up with some kind of can technology that allows you to see when your can is cold?
Yes, that's called feel.
It's called fingers. Yeah,
you touch it, it's cold.
You mean you can do that without having to look at mountains?
Yeah, apparently you can. It's a new.
You don't have to spend. How much do you think that cold activated can cost? Anheuser-Busch.
Is it the same technology as mood rings? That's what I'm guessing it is, right? Because that's what they said. Like you remember mood rings when we were a kid, right? And they said that what changes the color on the mood ring is actually just the body heat from your fingers. Right. So it really has nothing to do with
Those are for people
mood.
who need to look at their ring to find out what mood they're in?
Oh, gee, I don't know if I like Ian or not. Let me look at my ring and see. It says here I like him okay. So,
and here's your pet rock.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I got a chia pet for you for Christmas.
Right.
All right, so I tell you what, I'm enjoying this tequila. We'll sip a little more of this while we go to break. And then when we come back, we got a couple more Bakfish beers. What else are we sampling today?
We got Cheap Sunglasses, our Pale Ale.
Yes.
And Gravity, our double IPA.
Oh, yeah. Define Gravity is this, well, I'll ask you this question when we come back because we'll be talking about that. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 142. Bakfish is in the house, and we'll be right back.